who, pleased to say, joins us from Casper, Wyoming. Welcome to the program. Thanks for coming on.
Yes, appreciate it.
Let me start with the obvious question. Do you believe the election was stolen?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, yes. And I think the fake news media, what's that?
Where's the evidence for that?
Well, there's so much evidence, and the fake news media that refuses to really look at this, either they're just delusional with their hatred for Trump or they're just lazy. And I think it's a combination of the two in many ways.
Wouldn't we report findings from the Trump-appointed FBI director or the Trump-appointed Attorney General or the Trump-appointed judges in the courts or the Trump-appointed election overseer? None of them
Well, how
found
about
any
the
fraud.
fact that voter ID laws across our country, which have over 90% support, 90% support from Americans, the left refuses to allow these to go through every single state. In fact, they want to pass a law, H.R. 1 in Congress, which as a member I would work to stop, to undo every single voter ID law in our country. I just passed, I was the lead sponsor on the voter ID law here in Wyoming. Isn't that more revealing than anything you just said? The fact that our voter rolls are not purged, are not corrected, and the fact that a simple thing like a voter ID law is somehow controversial for the Democrat Party when even Democrat voters want it. It's only progressive activists that are a couple percent. Yes.
So Chuck, you wouldn't agree then with Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, who has just said in the past hour that he doesn't think anyone is questioning the legitimacy of the US presidential election. I'm quoting him, therefore. You don't agree with Mr. McCarthy. You are questioning the legitimacy of the election.
I think that the Republican members of Congress, though, today in this meeting, finally did what Wyomingites have longed to do for so long, which is to get rid of Liz Cheney by expelling her from leadership.
No, I'm asking you specifically, though, whether you agree with Kevin McCarthy that no one is questioning the legitimacy of the election.
No, I don't agree that. And I think that you see from the vote today, finally, Republican members of Congress are doing what Wyomingites also want to do, which is get rid of Liz Cheney and make sure that our party doesn't sell out to socialist Democrats the way Liz Cheney has.
Chuck, what issues, and let's move on from the election, what issues are you more conservative than Liz Cheney on?
Well, our industries in Wyoming are under attack across the board. Our coal, they don't want to allow us to have access to markets for our coal. I've worked a lot on that in the Wyoming State Legislature. It's an interstate commerce clause violation for West Coast states, Washington State, Oregon, California, to block our coal from having access to other markets. The closure of domestic coal-fired power plants, which is hurting domestic demand, all driven by this fake left-wing climate change narrative. Our oil and gas is under attack with this moratorium from the Biden administration. Over 50% of our oil production is on federal lands, over 80% of our gas production. And there's a moratorium that this Biden put in place at the start of the administration that prevents us from having new leases on federal land. So we're not able to reach our full potential to have commerce in our state and for our children, our grandchildren, our own generation to reach our full potential. And it's offensive. And all Liz Cheney does is put out a bunch of press releases.
When you say she's a sellout to socialist Democrats, I'm looking at her record here. She voted with Donald Trump 93% of the time. Her replacement, a much vaunted replacement, Elise Stefanik,
she was the first one in line.
Hang on. The Heritage Action, which is the conservative group that looks at voting records, gives her a lifetime voting record of 80%. Her replacement, Elise Stefanik, gets 48%. She's the most conservative of conservatives.
The American Conservative Union and CPAC just put out a rating of all the candidates in the race, and I rated highest in the congressional race for my conservative record in the state legislature. And Liz Cheney was the first one in line for this Nancy Pelosi left-wing narrative, the insider Nancy and left-wing narrative. I mean, really, what this is it's a coalition, and I've seen it time and time again in politics, of the radical left, the Democrat Party, and insiders. And Liz Cheney is part of that. And she was the first one in line to eat up this impeachment narrative and to vote for it. And it's been used against conservatives across our country time and time again, and it needs to stop.
Okay. Chuck Gray, interesting. Thank you very much for joining us. We will watch that